My name is Karen Schoen, and first of all, I just want to thank all of you. I love coming here. It's like coming home. This is where everything started. This is where we planned, and this is where we are now moving forward. I'm running for office, as Brenda said, and that would be in District 5 for the House. That encompasses Jackson, Washington, Holmes, Walton, and North Bay counties, and that would be North Bay above the airport, where there's hardly any people. So that's kind of a challenge. I believe, as you know, in truth, education, conversation, and action. And having brought a lot of the things that I have learned to all of you over the years, I came to this spot after trying for many years to work with Tallahassee and lobby as a citizen that things don't work. Tallahassee does not listen, and nothing to me was more evident than that than what went on this year. To me, this was probably one of the most egregious years ever. They passed a bill regarding foreclosures that gave the banks the ability to claim on an affidavit that they had a note and push people out of their homes, and the homeowner became the one who had to prove that the bank committed fraud. That's insane. Our homes, our communities have been devastated when our AG took money that was granted as a result of a lawsuit regarding foreclosures, and she took that money, and instead of giving it to the people who were in foreclosure, they got $300. Another pocket was created for first-time home buyers, giving them back the same kinds of loans that got them in trouble before. Our small businesses are being decimated. Our fishing industry, $9 billion worth, is being destroyed by phony scientists who have received grants from a variety of groups, starting in the United Nations, called catch shares. They sit with a computer and they decide how many fish are or not in the ocean. And then they turn around and tell our fishermen, you can't fish because a shortage has been created. And that would be the red snapper and the black sea bass. That doesn't just happen in Florida. The whole entire East Coast fishing industry has been destroyed. Now, that's horrible if you think about what the ramifications and who's connected. And that's the other thing. We have a bad habit of taking something and thinking, man, that's a really bad idea, or that's a good idea, and it's only in one particular area. We don't look at the effect in other areas. So when fishing was destroyed, it wasn't just the fishing industry. It was the boating industry. It was the marinas. It was all of the restaurants that service the marinas around the local cities. They're all gone. And this is what we have to face. As I've been running for office, I've been going around the district, and I am in a very rural district. Not only is it rural, it's one of the poorest districts in the state. And it should never be, because that area is filled with the most rich, beautiful land and incredible water sources that every farm should be productive today, and that our farmers can't farm. Because when they go and they have to pay their fees and their taxes and get their permits and have to follow stringent regulations, by the end of the day it's worthless for them to farm. I spoke to several farmers. One farmer said, Karen, I grossed $1.4 million 2 years ago. And after I paid everything for my farm, getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and stopping late at night, my family had less than $40,000 to live on. I can't continue to work like that. I went to a peanut farm meeting, all the peanut farmers, and by the time they finished reading the farm bill, they said, how are we going to make a living? And the answer is, They're not. And they're not going to. And the sad part is they're not supposed to. And I remember when we first met and we talked about Agenda 21 and all of the tentacles that it involved and all of the workings that it was, and everybody went, oh my God, that can't be real, it can't be happening. We're living the results of the initiation of the projects. We've just started. And that's the good news. We don't have to follow this program just because someone laid it out for us. Unfortunately, as I go to Tallahassee, I recognize that our legislators hardly even know what's in the Constitution. I got an email from Adam Putnam, and he said, I hope the Florida legislators will do something to push back the EPA. And I wrote back and I said, Adam, what's the 10th Amendment for? Have you forgotten? Why do we need legislation? You have the tools right in your hand. This is what we are facing when we have uneducated people who are uneducated about the Constitution. And whether it's the Florida Constitution or whether it's our federal Constitution, there's no way that you can make legislation if you don't know whether or not the legislation is constitutional. And I watched our legislators change the name of Common Core to Florida Sunshine Standards, thinking that we would be stupid enough, or I should say ignorant enough, to accept that as the new working model, and now they can tout we've gotten rid of Common Core. A name change does not mean changing the program. The fix of our country is really very simple. And it all starts in school. Because everything that happens, I always ask the question, what did they learn in school? Because school is the one common denominator that every American has to have. That's something that's part of our culture. Every American child goes to school. So therefore, school is the lowest common denominator. And when school is teaching trash and garbage, and teaching our kids how to do drugs, how to have sex, how to bully, because that's what happens when you teach kids they can't. What's the first thing they do? They go out and do. And as I was watching that movie before on the RFID chips, they're tracking truancy. Well, if the kids were stimulated in school, they wouldn't be truant. So what's wrong with this picture? We have the tools in our hands to make this work, to make our state work, and to make our country work. But we're not using them. And the tools start with the Constitution and with education. And the fact that our children no longer need to know the Constitution except on one day, Constitution Day. They need no longer to respect each other. They need no longer to pray to God when God is the one that helped create this wonderful country. We have allowed that to happen. And the only way that we're going to fix it is if we fix it. Nobody else is going to do it. The people that created the problem, they're not going to fix the problem. They're just going to add more to it, like Amendment 1. Amendment 1 is probably the biggest land grab ever in this state, and it must be killed. And it has nothing to do with conservation. That's the sad part. It uses, as they have learned, the ends justify the means. Fool the people, scare them, they'll come to the government for a cure, and then we can take. And that's what Amendment 1 is. So a group of people, well-meaning, traveled around the state and scared people into signing a petition by telling them, if we don't sign this, we'll have dirty water. I don't think so. A group of people got people to sign a petition that will now be a ballot initiative. I don't believe that this should be part of the ballot. That's number 1. But what this amendment will do is take a third of the dock stamps. Dock stamps are a tax that are paid when we have a real estate transaction, when we transfer real estate. A third of the dock stamps will then be going unaccounted with no oversight to a variety of conservation groups to do with what they want. And if we look back in history and see what they've done, they've created programs so that they can come onto your property and say, puddle, wetlands, you can't use your property. Bird, endangered species, you can't use your property. You can't use that water, Mr. Farmer. We're going to put a meter on your private well. This is where this is going. So we see programs like this. This is the beginning. These are programs that are real. They will happen, and it's up to us to make sure they don't. Now, I have not accepted any money from any special interest group. I am not interested in their endorsements, and I am not interested in what they have to say, because they are not interested in us. When we begged our legislators not to let illegals get in-state tuition or law degrees, they turned their backs. Do we want to take the same people and bring them back to office and think that they're going to do something different? They're not. I don't think so. So this amendment will become a slush fund for a variety of conservation groups that each and every one of you can go and look at and Google their name next to the word United Nations and see what comes up. I gave you out a paper today, and on that paper is a quote from the United Nations preamble. It's something that you've got to remember because it is the way these people think. They believe that land should not be treated as an ordinary asset controlled by individuals, because if it does, it creates what they call a social injustice and income inequality. Where have you heard those words before? So what that means is, if I have 10 acres and you have 20 and Gay only has 1, it's not fair. So the government should control everything, and then it will be fair. That's what they believe. This is what the United Nations quotes. And when you look at the people who are behind these organizations, they say the same thing. They don't change and they don't fool what they're telling you when they quote and go to their meetings. What they do fool is on these amendments. So Amendment 1, I'm asking everyone, everybody knows people that live in Florida. Make it your job between now and the next few weeks to contact all the people that you know and tell them to contact all the people that they know and vote no on Amendment 1. It's bad enough they're stealing our livelihood, it's bad enough they're stealing our heritage, and it's bad enough they're stealing our private property, but we certainly don't have to give them the money to do it. I'd like to take some questions because I know that everybody has questions about some of the ballot items and some of the things that have happened, and I'll be happy to answer them to the best of my ability. The other request that I have, if you heard me before, I said that I'm not taking any money from any special interest groups. This is an election for the people, and my voice will carry the voice of the people. So I'm going to ask you to please contact anyone you know in those 5 counties and tell them, vote no on Amendment 1 and yes for Karen. So one of the other things that I did want to share was what happens when you go to Tallahassee and what happens when you don't. When you go to Tallahassee, the legislators, when you go to a meeting and you testify, you usually see a parade of special interest groups, and they get 15 and 20 minutes to make their case and make their presentation. And then sitting in a room full of people, what usually happens is we the people get 3 minutes. We the people get 30 seconds. We the people get no time at all. We the people are asked to raise our hand if we are in favor or not in favor. That's wrong. Because we the people are the people who are providing our employees their position to follow what we the people want. So if we don't get engaged, and we don't start making calls, and we don't start voicing our opinion, shame on us. And for those of you that don't like to call legislators, call them late at night. Leave a message on their answering machine, and you don't have to talk to them. They will get the message, and they'll put on their little pad, yes or no. So this is a very important thing. When I get elected, I'm not going to be voting just for District 5. It doesn't work that way. An individual votes for the entire state. So please pay attention to the issues. You'll get information from Brenda. And when I say call into Tallahassee, call the newspaper, this is coming up. When Brenda says that, when Gay says that, do it. Because that's our job. That's the way our country was set up. It was set up for the people. But we will lose it if we don't pick it up and run with it. And that's really important, especially now as we are seeing firsthand illegals being dropped off in the state of Florida. That's another thing. And for those of you that go to school board meetings, or school board meetings or county meetings, the thing that you should be looking at is every single grant. What is attached to that grant? What am I going to have to do in my community if I take that grant? That sounds so wonderful, because that's the way it starts. That's the camel's nose under the tent. It's a grant. It comes with strings. And yes, 2 days ago I read that HUD gave out 1,200 grants. In 2012, HUD gave out 1,200 grants to 1,200 cities throughout the country. And now HUD is going back to these cities and telling them, you took the money to green your community. We have gone over the demographics of your community, and we are socially re-engineering your community because you do not have enough Section 8 houses in your community. That's what taking a grant means. So we have to look at the consequences of the actions of what we're doing before we jump on that wagon that thinks that we're going to ride down that trail without anybody paying attention to us. Everything that we do has consequences. And we are best off when we explore and find out, where did this program work? Where has it worked? What state can I look this up in? That is, it was a good thing that I want to emulate it here. And if it's a good thing, then we should follow it. Some of the conservation programs that are out there are incredible. They're fabulous. Our water, our land in Florida is magnificent. But Florida Forever owning 40% of the state in conservation is ludicrous. I have not found a bear or a panther that's willing to pay taxes. And so the burden falls back on us. And it's a very, very critical thing in the next 2 years that we pay attention to everything. And that means the ridiculous grants that are going on in our federal government, funding programs to find out if squirrels like dogs, things like that. So please pay attention, please get engaged. And those of you that have children, this is a wonderful place to start with them as well. Help them to get engaged. It's our civic duty. America was founded using Athenian democracy as one of Magna Carta. There were other pieces of the Ten Commandments. But in Athens, one of the requirements of being an Athenian citizen was that you had to go to the town square for at least an hour a day and talk politics, because that was that important. So we have to be the group that says no more political correctness, no more silent majority, and we will talk about politics and religion because that's the highest priority in this country.
I have a question, Karen. I know you said that you're not accepting any kind of contributions from any big, special interest. That's good. Special interest groups.
Right.
But you will accept contributions on an individual level?
Only from individuals, because you guys are the people that vote. You are the voices that are important.
And the other thing is I guess, you know, it's prudent for us as adults to look at these grants and some of this other stuff, these amendments with, you know, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, and start there and then, you know, peel the layers of the onion back and take a look at it, like you say, see where it's been implemented before, how has it really worked, and that's good advice.
Always follow the money. And what you'll find is that the same people hover the money. Charter schools. How many representatives in our Florida legislature own or have families or friends that own charter schools? That's an interesting thing. Eric Friesen's family in Miami owns 38 charter schools. When you have things like that, you can't be surprised that they're pushing charter schools. That's the way it works. You grease my palm, you donate to my campaign, I'm going to write legislation that's going to favor your industry. That's the way it works. So if we want to stop doing that, we have to stop doing it. And that's why I made that decision. I only will deal with the people. That's all. The only people that are going to tap me on the shoulder and say, look at this or vote that way are going to be the people, are going to be us, because I'm part of the people.
I wasn't aware that Florida had now had illegal drops. Where are they? Mostly here in the northern part of the state?
Well, we have
They've flown them into South, where are they?
we have proof that they have been dropped off in Jackson County. We know that they are in South Florida. There are 3 communities in South Florida that I am aware of. I mean, I know in Miami-Dade there's a lot more, but in Broward County, where I used to live, and in West Palm, Boca, Delray, and Wellington took grants to green their communities. They each have thousands of vacant Section 8 apartments in those communities. They are now being filled with illegals. They're going to go somewhere. California, when they build these sustainable developments in green cities, and HUD comes in and says, you have to have this, California was building them, they have vacant, vacant, vacant. Now they're being filled, filled, filled. And we also have reports that people taking illegal children are being paid huge sums of money, $7,000 a month, to take an illegal child while our veterans are living in cardboard boxes and tents in the woods. What's wrong with us? What's wrong with this picture that we're allowing this to happen? Now, part of it is we're not being told. But the other part is we're turning the other way. We're looking in the other direction. And we're believing what we read because it's easy. The truth is hard. It's a hard thing. And that was my campaign promise. I have 2 campaign promises. 1, I will always follow the Constitution and tell you the truth, no matter how hard it is to swallow. And 2, I will never vote for anyone other than what the people tell me to vote. So those are my 2 campaign promises. Those I will not falter on or waver on at all under any circumstances. So it's there. The information is there. We have to dig for it. And when I heard that they were in Jackson County, I went to Washington County, which was my county, and I asked our commissioners, what are they going to do? And the answer was, what should you do? What should you do is say no. We're not taking them, send them away, like the governor of Iowa. He said, he went out when the plane landed, he said, come this way, follow me. He brought them to another plane, and he said, take them to Honduras, because he figured out it was cheaper to send them back than it was to keep them. Why aren't we doing that? Because we, the people, don't come together. The nicest thing that I have discovered traveling around the district is that no matter who I talk to, rich, poor, black, white, tall, short, women, men, doesn't make any difference. We all have the same issues. The problem is we're not communicating it. So that's what I'm hoping to do, that our voices will come together because we're all suffering from the same thing. We just don't have people who will carry that message. And that's what I'm intending to do. Bye.
I just wanted to share a comment about Section 8 housing and the older building of it. I was in Nevada summer before last, and I see out in the boonies on a hillside, like in the desert, not much around, this huge 6-story apartment building. And the whole side of this apartment building says, is painted with a big sign that says free rent.
Your tax dollars at work.
That was left off, or was in the fine print that I couldn't see.
Folks, there's a reason why we're almost $18 trillion in debt. This is it. This is the crux of what it is. We are allowing people to infiltrate our home by not demanding a border is closed. How can we sit and listen on national television and hear Ebola is now in the United States and the border is still open? Every single one of those people who are in Congress should be eliminated. They should be voted out of office. To sit there and think that, and then they say, oh, this is a national security issue. Close the border. What's wrong with that? We have the same thing. ISIS is here. And yet, if you listen to the talking heads on Sunday night, on Sunday morning, they talk about ISIS and how it's going to be when 100 come back from Iran and are trained, and they're coming in on our planes because they have American passports. That's 100. What about the thousands that are coming in over the border? Which is more important? So they direct us to something that's of least importance while our border is wide open because of fictitious trade agreements and programs like Agenda 21 that say borders should be open. Do we want to kill our country? Because that's what that really means. We will never have liberty and freedom again if we don't correct this now, within the next 2 election cycles. Our children, not us, because it'll be slowly, it will be a slow evolution of the destruction of America if we don't take action now and get the right people in office. And getting the right people in office doesn't mean she gave a great speech, I loved it, I'm going to go out and vote for her. Don't do that. Go and Google my name and see what I stand for and see what I've said over the last 10 years. That's not going to change. And do the same with everybody else. See what they stand for. What actions have they taken? What have they done? And then when they haven't done the right thing, hold them accountable. And don't vote for them. We have to be Americans and stop being a party animal, because the party is only an animal for the party. They don't care about us. They could care less. And it doesn't matter whether it's the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, they're all the same. There's no difference anymore between any of them. So we have to make that decision. We have to vote for a candidate without looking. Take, hold your hand over the letter that's next to them and say, are they a good person? How did they vote? What do they think? What do they say? And then take their actions and make that the determining factor of who we're going to vote for. Anyone else?
One thing to add, when this country started, people went to church on Sunday mornings. Sunday afternoon, they went and gathered at somebody's house or farm or whatever and had a picnic or a dinner. And after dinner, the women went and sewed, the men talked politics. That meant they were managing our government 4 hours a week. That was our civic duty when this country was started.
Exactly.
If we're not managing our government 4 hours a week, we're remiss in our civic duties.
You're absolutely right. And that's exactly why they told us not to talk about politics and religion. So we have to be aware of the falsehoods, of the lies that are being told. And when you see them, call them out. those of you that have grandchildren, make sure that you read what they get in school and correct the lies that they're getting. It's very important, because when you follow the money, the people that produce the materials, Pearson, they produce the materials along with Achieve and the Gates Foundation and Integrity, which was the Bush family, and Pearson, which is Saudi Arabia. Why on earth are we accepting textbooks and literature describing America written and produced by people from Saudi Arabia? How do you think that's going to work out? Well, in one of our textbooks called Modern American History, we find 36 pages of Islam, 2 paragraphs of Christianity, and 3 paragraphs of Judaism. This is in our American history, oh, I'm sorry, world history book. And this is very well documented. There are books that I saw called Voices. That was an English literature book for young children, 3rd grade. This question went something like this. When you get home, Mommy asks you or nags you to clean your room. What's the correct answer? Well, put asks. No, nags. What happens when little Sally goes home and Mommy says, could you clean your room? The answer then becomes, stop nagging me, Mommy. That's where they're getting it. And the sad part is, we're paying for it. It's our money. And we have the right to say, no, we're not going to do that. The idea that every child should have an iPad is insane. And I asked that of my the representative that I'm going to be replacing because she is termed out. I said, Marty, where do we live? Did you forget? She said, what do you mean? I said, where do we live? She said, we live in Florida. So what happens in Florida? Florida's the lightning capital of the world. There isn't a month that goes by that we don't have some kind of shortage, we don't have some kind of down electricity. What are the kids going to do if it's out for a week? What tablet are they going to look at? How are they going to calculate? Do you think they can make change? No, they cannot. And then they grow up and think that the person with the biggest debt is the winner. So debt becomes unimportant. We have to pay attention because these things are changing right in front of our eyes. One more
Karen, we'll follow on to your discussion about Saudi Arabia and Common Core. The 36 pages of Islam versus a couple of paragraphs in there. We have daughters who are Choctaw High School now. They're twins. And about 3 years ago in middle school, toward the end of the year, their history teacher was behind schedule. They had 3 chapters. One chapter was on Islam, one was on the history of the Muslim people, another the history of the Christian people, and another one the history of the Jewish people. Our daughters were told, and all their classmates are told, the Okaloosa County School Board says we are not going to cover either the Christian history or the Jewish history. We're only going to cover the Muslim history. And that's right here in Okaloosa County. Okay, run by the teachers' unions, run by the school board, run by somebody. You know.
Make a friend of your school board member, and if you can, run for school board. That's our civic duty. But above all, make sure that you read what your children and grandchildren are reading, because that's the key. We are the last generation that actually had a textbook of American history that was American history. And what are they doing now? They're burning them. If you see anywhere in any of your schools that they're going to be throwing out and burning textbooks, don't let them do that, because there will be a time when we will have no electricity. And those textbooks will come in very quickly. But if they are the new ones, let them burn them. Go look for the old ones, because those are the ones that are new. My website is on the card. It's votekarenschoen.com. My blog website is KarenSchoen.com, and there you will find the majority of the articles and videos that I have done over the past years. I've put that there so it makes it easy for people to find them. I write for News with Views and Watchdog Wire and several other papers, but I'm putting everything in that one place, and I promise you it wasn't updated in the last 2 weeks, but that's where the basic information is. Please share the information. It doesn't matter who writes it. It's only important when we share it. If you learn things and you keep them to yourself, you might as well not know them. We have to share, we have to communicate, we have to talk. We have to talk to everybody, our neighbors, our friends, and it doesn't matter. And if they don't want to listen, just say next, because eventually they will. And you can see that when they come and tell you, Mom, Dad, there's a chip that they want to implant, you'll be able to say, see? And that's not the best answer. The best answer is to sit with them. Make it into questions. That's the other item. Make it into questions. Ask them questions. Don't make bold statements. Thank you all. I
One question.
appreciate it.